Well, thanks for everyone for joining. I think we're here to take a little bit of a pulse check on the relationship between Silicon Valley and the Pentagon. We get to do it once a year at the Reagan Defense Forum, but why not take sort of an interim approach and do it right ahead? 8 months into the second Trump administration, we want to sort of see where the relationship is going. Emil, this has been an administration of wearing multiple hats. Of course, we've seen Marco Rubio wearing multiple hats. Now you're wearing another hat as head of the Defense Innovation Unit, of course, the Pentagon's Silicon Valley outpost. Can you talk a little bit about how that's going and more fundamentally, what the overall plan is? Is it going to stay under R&E? Is the plan for that to report to the SecDef? What is it looking like long term?
I've been the acting head for about 2 weeks, and the idea is to have it remain an independent organization that reports the way it reported. So it made sense for me to be the acting head of it because I built 4 companies in Silicon Valley, so I'm familiar with the financing community, the entrepreneur community out there, and how exciting it is for companies like yours and others to get embraced by the Defense Department in a sort of more streamlined way. Otherwise, the Defense Department could be hard and opaque to navigate for a small company. It doesn't have the lobbyists, legal staff, and sort of understanding of how to bid on government contracts. So we want to keep that front door open to young companies that have a commercial solution that may have military applications. So the mission of DIU won't change. And I'm in the interim while I'm leading the organization, intent on making sure it sort of continues to find the innovative commercial solutions that have answers to the warfighter problems.
So safe to say it's not going to be a commuting situation between DC and Silicon Valley. Ryan, wanted to get to you on sort of what Shield AI has been able to do in Ukraine and some of the frontiers that you see between drones and AI. What do you see as the frontiers in terms of AI, managing launches, navigating drones, potentially contributing to air defense, which we see as a major problem in defense?
Yeah, so we have about 40 full-time Shield AI personnel in Ukraine, and they've been there for about a year. And the objective was to make as much positive mission impact as we could by finding the way to intersect leading technologies with what was going on in the modern battlefield. I think AI has a tremendous role to play. Some of the latest stuff that I'm hearing from our team in Ukraine is just how difficult it is for this very large volume of drones that they are building to actually find their targets. There are some programs that are being stood up that have an objective of P-kill to be as high as 2%, right? And that's because of the extreme challenges in that environment, the EW challenges, the jammed GPS, the jammed communications. It makes it very hard to find targets. And AI technologies that enable systems to navigate in these tough EW environments that allow them to fly without GPS, that'll make it possible to find and fix targets deep in enemy-controlled territory are critically important to increasing the effectiveness of weapons on the modern battlefield.
So just to put a finer point on that, that's 2% of the drones that are reaching their targets in some instances.
Yes.
Wanted to talk about sort of drone development in the U.S. Emil, I mean, we've seen the U.S. fall a little bit behind in terms of drone development compared to some of the competitors. What do you sort of see with the Pentagon's major initiative, Replicator? There have been questions about the future of Replicator. You had your first tranche. The second tranche is meant to be focused on counter-UAS. Where do you see that program going?
Replicator was one effort by the DoD to create a mass drone arsenal, if you will. The effort that's been also ongoing and sort of not as well known is in research and engineering. My department, we have a program called T-Rex, testing readiness, experimentation, something. I forget the last one. I was just out there in Indiana at a 1,000-acre proving ground where we have real-world conditions for drone operators to come and try their drones products, and we rate them based on how well they work in satellite-denied environments and comms-denied environments. We had 103 participants, so 103 different companies came in and flew their drones, and we had countermeasures also to see how they did against some of the counter-UAS systems that are out there. So we have a ton of new companies in the DoD right now getting financed to bring their best UAV technologies to us. And that's in addition to Replicator, which is sort of military-ready products. These are now hopefully the next generation of drones that will become ready for the military services to adopt.
So you expect that to continue? Is the plan to continue with acquisition of drones that are meant to kill, or is it sort of the counter UAS that being the next focus?
Counter UAS is an additional focus. There's no such thing as you stop sort of buying or developing drones and only counter drones. You need both. You need sort of an attack drone, and you need ways to counter drones. So in the counter drone area, we have a bunch of big events coming up in the United States. We have World Cup, we have the 250th anniversary, we have military bases in the US and abroad. There's lots of reasons you need to counter UAS attacks. And then for our theater operations, we need UASs just like any other strong military would.
Do you have a ballpark for what you're looking to buy in terms of the next rounds of Replicator, whether it's counter UAS and also on the seek and kill drones?
Well, we have a separate effort set up as Joint Interagency Task Force for counter UAS. And again, these systems obviously operate different. Like you have a UAS system, and then you want to counter it, and the counter is focused on swarms, right? If you have a drone swarm coming at you, you need different technologies on how to take down swarms, and there's lots of different methods for doing that. And we just stood up an organization to sort of focus on that. And on the drones themselves, Replicator will continue. But what we're now doing is sort of opening the aperture. We had a drone dominance memo that the Secretary of Defense signed out, which was to simplify the process for getting a drone certified by the DoD for use cases. And that led to things like this T-Rex proving grounds that we do twice a year to get new companies involved. And then the idea is that these companies can then collaborate. Like maybe one has a good seeker, one is figure out how to work in a comms-denied environment. A lot of lessons from Ukraine are being incorporated in these new companies and what they're building.
Ryan, just wanted to turn to you on doing business with the department. How has it been going in the first few months of this new administration? You have movement on the acquisitions process in the Senate and in the House on the NDA with Forged and Speed, but just curious if it's getting easier, if it's still difficult. We do still see difficulties in
Yeah, number one, I think the relationship between Silicon Valley and the Defense Department is stronger than ever, or stronger than it ever has been during my professional career. I know Silicon Valley has roots, in partnership with the Defense Department, but in the last decade, and especially in the last couple of years, there's been a resurgence of partnership between Silicon Valley and the Defense Department. I think that this administration has done a phenomenal job encouraging the department to find new and innovative ways to acquire technology. Certainly, there is legacy friction. There are laws that the acquisition professionals have to abide by, and they are far more Byzantine than what exists in the commercial sector. But the thing that I think is very encouraging is the attitude, the approach, the energy that people on the government side of things are approaching acquisition to find new ways of doing business.
Emil, how's it been for you? Because you came from the tech sector, you came from Uber, now you have to adapt to what some call sort of a Soviet style of planning with the acquisitions system. How has that been? And of course, you have the memo on implementing commercial tech. That's been a big focal point. How is it to get off the shelf? Because it still seems difficult for the drones, for some of the capabilities to come through.
It's wildly easier. I did a stint in the DoD back in the early 2010s. And things got more complex since then, and I think now we're on a de-complexity sort of train with these executive orders that are requiring what they call other transaction authorities, which is sort of a normal contracting process that you go through with someone like his
This
company.
is a rapid prototyping
Yeah,
authority.
well, it's a rapid prototyping, it's a rapid acquisition authority. So the default is to do that. The default is to use commercial solutions if they're available. So the default has been changed from complex and highly regulated to rapid and simple and sort of more of a normal corporate contracting method. And that's not going to be everywhere. If you're buying a new plane system or a new submarine, those things are going to still have the complexity that a system like that kind of demands. But when you start talking about the nature of warfare changing to be mass, attritable, smaller, using AI and other technologies to make the weapons development and production simpler, you can actually contract it for more simply as well. So that's sort of like the whole thrust of where the warfare is going and where the department's going and where this administration's going is towards more simplicity in the buying process.
Well, I want to ask you about that just in terms of strategy. Politico has reported, other outlets have reported that the national defense strategy is going to look more primarily on the homeland than China. That's a major shift. We have, of course, multiple warships in the Caribbean. How does this change the focus for you? Is the pacing threat now no longer China when it comes to the DoD and what you're prototyping, what you're trying to buy?
The pacing threat is China, and I think that's clear. That'll be clear in the NDS. The fact that the pacing threat is China doesn't mean CENTCOM doesn't matter, as we saw with the strike in Iran. It doesn't mean that the drug boats in the Caribbean don't matter either. It's sort of where the development is going and where the resources are going to go primarily, but that doesn't mean that we have the biggest military in the world and the strongest, so it could do more than one thing at one time, but it has to have a focus. And for the last couple of decades, the focus has been in the Middle East with ground wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and now it's moving, as it should, in my view, to China.
I wanted to turn to some of the Ukraine focus that we've talked about, Ryan, that's come up in this panel. When you look at the development that you're doing with VBAT, with other capabilities, is Ukraine still sort of the model for the U.S. when it comes to China being the pacing threat? Can you adapt that model for the Pacific when we see Ukraine having a lot of success with perhaps shorter range drone capabilities, things like fiber optics?
Number one, I think there's a lot that the United States can learn from Ukraine. I think there's also a lot of unique challenges that present themselves in the Pacific. Maybe just to stay on theme of acquisition, I think one of the very interesting things about the United States is just how fast American industry can go. There are so many examples of companies just breaking through glass and reinventing something and conquering markets. The U.S. military can do the same thing, incredibly agile, incredibly powerful, but the intersection of the military and industry is fraught with friction. And so industry and the department need to find out how to be able to move fast together, and I think that's a critical lesson in the war in Ukraine. You can look at the aircraft and the weapons that started the war in Ukraine and the ones that are being most effective today. They are radically different. And if you look at the way that most programs have been set up in the United States over the last couple of decades, they just don't allow for those cycle times. And so I think probably one of the most important lessons that we can learn, in addition to the importance of being effective on an EW battlefield, is that industry and government have to find the path to go fast together.
And that's been a speed limiter? Because it seems like we've had all this talk for the last several years about rebuilding the arsenal of democracy, getting to almost a World War II tilt when it comes to industry, but it doesn't seem like we're there yet.
I think there's a lot of work left to do. Just to give you an example to make this sort of like a real point, there was a program that we're working with the government, a couple of years ago, and to make a software update to an airplane took about a year, right? And in our work in Ukraine, the difference between mission effectiveness and mission failure can be software configuration updates that you have about 48 hours to push. Right, so that's the delta that has existed. There is, I think, a lot of positive progress in programs to create pathways. That's a lot of P's to enable software to get pushed faster.
But I'll correct you. This rebuilding our military, rebuilding our arsenal, the arsenal of democracy, it's 8 months old. This hasn't been going on in the last administration.
The last administration talked about it too.
They weren't doing it. In any sense of the word, as you could tell by that example and many more. So I think that has been sort of the reason that Secretary War-Hegseth has said one of his 4 pillars was rebuilding the military, and that include both personnel from a recruiting standpoint, our arsenals, and sort of the category of weapons that we needed to be building. So I think this has been an 8-month effort, and we're just at the start of it, but you're going to see real progress soon.
I wanted to turn to sort of the people aspect of the Defense Department. Obviously, there have been multiple rounds of DRPs, deferred referral program. We've seen a lot of people leave. I know there's been an argument from Secretary Hegseth and others that leaner is better, but how is this affecting your enterprise? I mean, we've seen a lot of people go. We've seen consolidation in the Defense Department. How is this going to change how the Defense Department acquires, how it talks to industry, how it deals?
I mean, I think you have to put it in perspective. The percentage of people who've left the Defense Department over sort of the normal attrition rate is infinitesimal. So I don't think people realize the scale of a 3.3 million person department. If 50,000 people take an early retirement, the magnitude is sort of not as much as you would think. But more importantly, on the consolidation point, I think consolidation helps industry. That's fewer places to go in, to sell into, fewer organizations that have to qualify your product or to test your product, more of a clear line of hierarchy of how to get things done. So I think those things are going to be, hopefully very impactful in a positive way to industry.
And obviously, in terms of the restructuring, we've seen the CDAO, the Chief AI Office, move under R&E as well. How much of a part of your day job has that become?
I'm excited about that. The Chief AI Officer for DoD, if you think about it as the AI czar for DOW, Department of War, what it does is take what was an office unto its own, marry it with a lot of technology and research and engineering. In my group, we have DARPA, we have the Missile Defense Agency, we have a lot of these critical technology areas. We partner with the universities, we partner with the federally funded research labs. So to add AI to that portfolio means it gets a lot of muscle to it. So I'm spending at least a third of my time, maybe half, rethinking how the AI deployment strategy is going to be at DoD, and we want to go faster. We want to have an AI capability on every desktop. It means 3 million desktops in 6 or 9 months. We want to have it focus on applications for corporate use cases like efficiency, like you would use in your own company or in your phone, for intelligence and for warfighting. And there's going to be different ways to use it across the board for that.
And if the U.S. is ahead of China on AI, and I know a lot of commentators say it is, how far ahead is the U.S. from your vantage point where you sit, since that's a big part of your day job now?
I believe the U.S. is far ahead, but this is not an industry that moves slowly. So this is not something to say, oh, we're reasonably far ahead. We can, pace ourselves now. There is a intense global race for every stack of the AI, stack. Where do you have enough high-quality chips? Do you have enough data and power centers? Do you have enough researchers? Do you have enough companies that are competing? Do you have enough applications, data, you name it? So to stay competitive and stay ahead, you have to really be dominant as you can in every one of those, so that it adds up to the American industry being the dominant AI industry in the world.
Ryan, wanted to turn to you with the last word. We talked about sort of the urgency in the defense industry. From your vantage point, what are sort of startups, new entrants doing to fuel that urgency? And are more companies able to get over the valley of death with these changes in the acquisition process?
I think the biggest thing is that Silicon Valley and investors have shown willingness to put resources behind entrepreneurs that want to build next generation capabilities. There has been an explosion of companies jumping into the defense tech space. And so some of the stuff that those companies are doing is really remarkable. And I think that we have a Defense Department that is eager to partner with the ecosystem.
Wonderful. Well, I think that about does it for our time. Appreciate you both. And we'll hopefully see you next year at this.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.